Hi friends, ignore the weed whacker in the back. Welcome to this video. If you are new here, my name is Dion and this is part 2 to my In Defense of Uniforms video. And this video wasn't supposed to be a part 1 and part 2, so it seems a little bit disjointed. So if you haven't watched part 1, definitely go do it. What we're gonna do in this video is we're gonna pick up where we left off in part 1 when we were talking about how uniforms don't exist in real life and uniforms are pointless. And I'm going to read to you an anecdote from Morehouse College, a historically Black university, and why they choose to implement dress codes. So with that, please enjoy this video, and here is part 2. Ivy League schools originally had dress codes in nearly an unwritten uniform because they believed it was part of their education to teach them how to dress and behave professionally. Originally with these big Ivy League schools, that was a core part of education, was the acculturation of their students, to make sure their students knew how to act, dress, use the right fork when they went into the workforce. So I wanted to share an anecdote with you guys about Morehouse College, which is an HBCU, a historically Black university or college. The author says, not so long ago, many colleges and universities aspired to provide a holistic education in which academic mastery was part of a larger acculturation. Hampton-Sydney, another HBCU, and Morehouse have retained its holism. They work to create a distinctive culture while most other schools have drifted towards cosmopolitan careerism. Morehouse has a strict dress code of its students. It's one of the last remaining all-male colleges in the United States, and they have a strict dress code for their students. And they've been getting some pushback, especially from gay and transgender students, about the fairness of the Morehouse dress code. I'm not going to get super into that part, but I'm going to read the defense argument for the dress code. For its defenders, the Morehouse dress code reflected the civil rights tradition of Sunday best activism, exemplified by the elegant, Harvard-educated W.E.B. Du Bois and, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. Civil rights protesters sat in at lunch counters and marched in demonstrations dressed in their Sunday best. Their attire was a visual repudiation of racist stereotypes. By dressing to confound racist images of Black ignorance, sloth, and slovenliness, a well-dressed Black person used clothing to repudiate racism on a visual and visceral levels on which it operated. And that's what Morehouse, an HBCU, is trying to instill in students, the sort of Sunday best activism. And I understand both sides of Sunday best activism. This book goes more into it. Sunday best activism is basically dressing yourself in a professional it's about respectability politics, trying to make yourself look as respectable as possible so the opposing forces can't use arbitrary things against you, like how you're dressed or whatever. On the other hand, there's something beautiful about the George Floyd protest of seeing everybody from all walks of life wearing all different things coming together. That's a different symbol of unity. There's so many, everybody's different, but they're coming together for this cause. And there's something really powerful about something like the Black Panthers, where there was a very sort of strict uniform and you could identify them, and that was another symbol of unity. So back and forth on that. Morehouse continues in an older tradition, characteristic of Black colleges, in which colleges and universities aspire to provide a holistic education, including lessons in comportment, etiquette, and attire. Not so long ago, many colleges and universities aspired to provide a holistic education in which academic mastery was a part of a larger process of acculturation to refine its norms of civility. And this serves as a purpose especially for those who have not been exposed to it before college. And this is when I'm getting into the school uniform part, so bear with me. Critics of the Morehouse dress code understandably worried that it was elitist. It promoted a bourgeois ethos that the Black male who has an array of suits, neckties, slacks, and other fixtures of life. But maybe that's the point. Morehouse required attire that some of its students were unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with to make sure that all of its graduates would be familiar and comfortable with the written and unwritten dress codes of the professional world most of them aspire to enter. Ivy League schools do not have such dress codes. They do not need them. The majority of their students come from privilege and understand its symbolism almost instinctively. The few who cannot suffer when it comes time to that first job. If you were born from 0 to 18 or 0 to 22 going into your Ivy League school, you know what fork to use, you know what to wear, you know how to act in this elitist, classist society. But if you didn't grow up on that, if you were a scholarship kid, you are thrown to the wolves in this academic setting, not knowing the unwritten and written rules of how to dress and behave in society and in the workplace. So places like Morehouse argue that they are trying to ensure that all of its graduates are adequately prepared for life. So this author went to Stanford. Most of our students at Stanford grew up surrounded by professionals. They don't need instruction on professional norms, but we leave the few who might need it, those from underprivileged backgrounds and underrepresented groups, who we congratulate ourselves for recruiting and admitting, to work out a lifetime's worth of knowledge on their own. By contrast, Morehouse, like most historically Black colleges, has made upward social mobility a central part of its institutional mission and deliberately focuses on the cultivation and socialization, things that many other schools take for granted. Again, this whole anecdote is to say that this historically Black college is trying to prepare its students for this elitist, racist world by instilling proper dress codes and how to behave and act and dress in the workplace. So the next argument, which I do agree with, against uniforms is that they are classist and expensive. Uniforms are so stupidly pricey. At my high school, it was $25 per shirt for short sleeve. I think it was $35 for a long sleeve, $40 for the polyester navy blue pants, and $50 for the sweaters. So if you had 3 shirts and 3 pants and a sweater, that would be roughly $245. And that's when you're 14 as a freshman. You don't think your body is gonna change between 14 and 18. So that means you'll probably grow out of it within the 4 years of your high school. And it's even worse when you're like an elementary or middle school kid. From one year, you have this like little girl body, and the next year you have double D's. And then you're expected to continue to buy these uniforms. My solution to this, and I think what will make uniforms better in the future, is that if a uniform is required by the school, it must be subsidized, whether it's a private or public school. Student, their first year at that school, receives a voucher for 3 shirts and 2 pants, and they can buy more if they want. With the school, when they are admitted to the school, again, whether it's public or private, gives them a voucher to the school store for 3 shirts and 2 pants. And every year that they're at the school, they get another voucher for 1 shirt and 1 bottom. That way we solve the growing out of clothes problem. So when you're a freshman, you get a voucher, 3 shirts, 2 pants, and then as a sophomore, you get another voucher for another shirt, another pair of pants. Junior, another shirt, another pair of pants. Senior, another shirt, another pair of pants. So ideally, by the time you graduate, you have 5 of each set, and you didn't have to necessarily pay for them. However, you can always buy more. I also believe that there needs to be better used uniform circulation. Because many of my friends are older and my mom's best friend's kids would go to the same schools that I did, I typically wore hand-me-downs. I would often wear my brother's or my neighbor's or my friend's hand-me-down uniforms. But I do think schools just need to be better about having a circulatory system when it comes to uniforms. Lots of schools sort of have it, whether it's a lost and found or whatever, but it should be a more normalized practice for returning your uniform when you grow out of it. Maybe even like if you return it, you can get 50% off a voucher for a replacement to encourage a more circular economy. So that way you have discounted used school uniforms and you're encouraging students who are graduating to return their uniforms, but you're also encouraging students to not only return them, but buy ones that fit by giving them 50% off next whatever they return. I do think that in order for uniforms to survive and to last, we need to have a more circular used uniform economy, and that we need to subsidize uniforms, because it is completely unfair for a scholarship kid to go to this amazing private school that's going to give them all these opportunities, and for their family to spend half their rent money on a uniform they're going to grow out of in 6 months. The last, and what Instagram said was the biggest problem of school uniforms, is that they are gendered and often homophobic. At my high school, originally girls had skirts, boys had pants, and then they got rid of skirts, and so we only had pants, and then we had long and short sleeve blouses, sweater vests in blue and red, and sweaters in blue and red, and we had to wear black penny loafers. That was the dress code. So I think in order to get rid of the gendered and homophobic aspect, the school just has 2 types of shirts, short and long sleeve, and 3 types of bottoms, let's just say. Pants, skirt, shorts. And any student can choose any of those options. Students shouldn't be punished for wearing the uniform that you guys provided. Whether it's a man in a skirt or a woman in shorts, who the fuck cares? Wearing the uniform skirt, they're adhering to the uniform guidelines. You don't need to make it so gendered. If it's like no jewelry or earrings for mask presenting folks, then it should be no jewelry for feminine. Or everyone can wear earrings, but only the first holes. You can't have extended holes, or they have to be studs. But again, you have to apply these uniform dress code rules equally, which is why I hate dress codes, because they're almost never adhered equally. At my high school, men had to have their short hair. That's bullshit. There's an argument with these earrings or with the hair about professionalism, but there are plenty of professors, lawyers, people who are in professional spaces that have man buns or something. So the notion of professionality with masks with long hair is slowly fading out, and these are children. Children should be able to wear their hair however they want. And you can just say no statement colors, no fashion colors. So you can have brown, red, blonde, black hair, no blue, green, etc. I mean, that makes sense to me in the sense of arguing for professionality in terms of your hair and the way that you look, and is a way to create it equal across all gender identities and allow people to explore. Again, if you have 3 bottoms, 2 shirts, students should be allowed to pick whatever bottoms and shirt combination they want to wear that day. You're providing the bottom, you're providing the uniform, so why would you punish a student for wearing the uniform just because they just want to match their apparent gender? It doesn't make any sense. And same with like jewelry or hair, just apply it equally. You don't want giant dangly earrings? All right, you can wear earrings, only the first hole, only studs. You know, don't make people cut their hair, but they just can't have colorful hair. I don't know, something like that where it's more equal and standardized. A off-topic example of this is, but my school had to like issue an announcement of like, girls can't wear certain colored bras, because we had white blouses, white shirts across the board, male and female, at my school. And in my head, I'm like, why are you telling me what underwear to wear? You provided the uniform. You chose the fabric and the color white. Did you not take into consideration the opacity of the shirt? Like, it's not my fault you guys chose a see-through white shirt. And of course, there's always gonna be a girl wearing a neon pink bra. You shouldn't be punishing a child for what underwear they're wearing under the uniform you provided just because the uniform you provided is see-through. That is like the most bullshit thing ever. I just remember being like, you chose this. Like, you chose a white blouse. Maybe have some forethought into like making sure you can wear whatever you want under it. Why are you policing my underwear rather than fixing the see-through problem of the shirt you chose? So like shit like that is the school needs to take responsibility. So they're not policing teen girls' underwear. Because of course, no one ever cared when a man wore a black tank top under their uniform shirt. It was only when girls wore black or pink or cheetah print bras. So that's like, again, schools need to take some personal responsibility in applying uniform laws equally across all gender identities, and that is why I'm against dress codes and more pro-uniform. Because the clearer the boundaries of uniforms, the less discretion there is, and the less discretion, the less discrimination. And that's just plain and simple. Going back to like the gendered and often homophobic uniform rules, if a student is wearing a uniform that fits and it's the uniform that the school provided, they cannot be punished for how it fits on them. There was one girl, her name was Emily, who was like 6'2" in freshman year. And she was thin, super skinny. Of course, her skirt was not gonna reach a credit card length above the knee. She's a giraffe. And on the other hand, the same score, let's say Emily wore small, the same score on a small girl at my school who, let's say, was 5'2", would pass the dress code, but on Emily, it wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense. A student, especially if a girl, is wearing the uniform provided, you can't punish them for the color of their bra or just where the uniform lays on their body. There was another girl who had a big butt, and her butt always was popping in our polyester navy blue pants. You can't punish her for the way her butt is shaped. She's wearing the uniform that you guys provided. So how can you punish her for just the body that she's given? So those things need to change in terms of like the gendered and homophobic rules of uniforms, is that so long as it is the correct uniform, it is the uniform that the school said, this is what you wear, these 3 shirts, these 3 bottoms, these sweater vests, so long as they're wearing those, you can't dress code them for how it lays on their body, whether it's big boobs, big butt, long legs, etc. Again, all women-centered things, because we don't punish men for these things. You can't punish them for the bra that they're wearing or the fact that they're tall. So I'm 5'8", and at the retail job that I work at, I simply cannot wear any of the shorts or the skirts that the store has because they will always be inappropriate. Even though my coworker who's 5'5" can wear the exact same shorts as me, size medium, a size medium on her fits her waist and is appropriate on her legs, a size medium on me that fits my waist is inappropriate on my legs. If the person is wearing the explicitly stated clothing pieces that the school or the institution laid out, they cannot be punished for the way it lays on their body. That is something that desperately needs to change in the school system. Guys, why I am personally pro-uniform. I truly do believe it helps alleviate blatant class differences. So my middle school had the least strict uniform rules, and as a result, I remember seeing all the girls in my class, sixth grade, we were 11, wearing these certain flats. And I was like, oh, what flats are those? Because I didn't know. And they said Tory Burch. And I remember looking on Payless.com. Didn't see Tory Burch, weird. Looking on Marshalls, didn't see Tory Burch, weird. So finally I just looked on Google and it said Tory Burch flats, $300. And I was like, there's no way everyone's wearing these $300 shoes. Everyone was wearing these $300 shoes. Whereas on the opposite end, my high school, we had to wear black penny loafers. You could choose any penny loafers, black penny loafers that you wanted. The school did supply some at their uniform store. And of course, some of the hyper rich kids were wearing penny loafers that had like a Gucci emblem on it or a Michael Kors emblem on it. But for the most part, you didn't see it. And of course, some kids had Louis Vuitton backpacks, or some kids had Ferrari backpacks. But again, for the most part, because the uniform was so strict, these class differences only peaked out in very subtle ways. Just like you can't stifle creativity, you also cannot shield children from class differences. Unfortunately, rich people are going to flex, and rich people are going to show off and flaunt their wealth. So you can't shield it from that, but uniforms certainly alleviate a lot of blatant class differences, especially if schools subsidize uniforms, because then we're not having people who are wearing uniforms that are way too small, way too tight, ill-fitting, because they can't afford new ones. If the subsidized uniform aspect would even further alleviate blatant class differences among students. I also am pro-uniform because your clothing does psychologically affect you. When cops put on a uniform, they feel powerful enough to shoot black people in the street, but not enough to stop a school shooter, for 19 Texas children. When a lawyer puts on their suit, they feel formidable in front of a judge to defend their case. When I put on my retail shirt, I go into customer service mode. When you have a team uniform, you know who's on your side. You're in sports mode or whatever. It's like you're Pavlov's dogging yourself. You know that in these clothes, I'm going to be in school mode. I'm going to be in this professional, educational space for 8 hours. And on the other hand, you Pavlov dog yourself into thinking my outside clothes are for fun, expression, and the freedom of weekends and summer and parties and everything. Again, for me, because I had a uniform for so long, it made my outside clothes so much more special and curated, and I actually worked harder on my outfits because I so seldom got to wear my outside clothes. So I actually, because of my uniform, I ended up dressing better because I was like, listen, I never get to dress like this. I want to wear my nice clothes. And I held that until maybe my senior year of college. That's when I let myself slip because I was so used to dressing myself every single day. But I actually, fun fact, used to pick out my clothes for the week. I would put them in little bundles and pick out outfits for the week because I was so used to waking up and just grabbing my uniform that I had to plan outfits because I didn't know how to get up and just dress myself. If I got up and just dressed myself, I would just wear sweats or something basic. And so I'd plan out my outfits so I knew that I looked good and I would be in professional sports mode or whatever. It psychologically had me attribute my outside clothes were special and I want to dress nicely, and helped fueled my creativity and my fashion sense in the outside world. And at school, let me just focus on school. Less distraction. That's what my brother said. That's what I would argue. It's easier on the students and the parents, and it minimizes the, ooh, what's she wearing thoughts that do inevitably happen. Again, you're still gonna notice the Michael Kors watch or the Ferrari backpack, but it does minimize it. That's the key word here. Because you can still express yourself through uniforms, you'll still be judged, and you'll still judge people on things like your fit of your uniform, the type of shoes, the jewelry you wear. But again, it minimizes it. Just like with the class differences, it doesn't get rid of it, but it significantly minimizes it compared to not having uniforms, I would argue. And professionalism is a very real thing. Like it or hate it, respectability, politics, and the nuances of professionalism is something that everybody is gonna face. And getting into the habit of conforming to the rules that you'll inevitably face does prepare you for the real world. That doesn't mean you shouldn't push back on dress codes. I am not going to super go into respectability politics as a whole because this video is already 45 minutes long. But the term respectability politics was coined by Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham in her 1993 book, Righteous Discontent, the Women's Movement in the Black Baptist Church. It refers to the belief that marginalized communities must adhere to dominant cultural norms to receive respect. And I went to law school and I've heard this before. My mom saying that, you can't wear too bright of colors, you can't be too bland, you can't be too pretty, you can't, because you're already a woman in a male-dominated world, to wear things that are tight, bright, decorative is going to undermine your intelligence, But to be plain and ugly is also not going to give you the respect. And so across all marginalized communities, there's also a term called code switching, where depending on who you're around, you adjust your cultural norms. So if you want to know more about respectability politics, I again highly recommend Dress Codes or Evelyn Higginbotham's book, Righteous Discontent, and looking more into that. But that is across all marginalized communities, but it's specifically Black communities. And respectability politics and the idea of what's professional, what's not, they're so broad. These dress codes of professionality and respectability are so broad that they always end up targeting women and people of color, and specifically women of color. It's the young person's job to constantly question and push the boundaries in order to have progress. You should 100% challenge dress codes. I used to challenge dress codes in my sorority when we had chapter. I remember when I wanted to be a lawyer, I was like, I'm challenging this idea that I can't be a smart, formidable lawyer while also looking fabulous in an Elle Woods pink suit. You should challenge those norms. However, a school's job is to teach you and prepare you for the workforce. So can you blame them for trying to instill professionalism and respectability politics so you can survive in an unfair world? You should challenge the unfair world, but the school's job is also there to help you survive in it and thrive in it. We're gonna give you the tools to succeed in this world, and we also encourage you to challenge this world. It can be both. In conclusion, I believe that school uniforms are a good thing. However, much needs to change in order to make them more fair. The looser the school uniform rules are, the closer they are to dress codes. Therefore, the closer they are to arbitrary discretion of enforcing who is getting dress coded. It is better to have clear uniform regulations. Again, at my middle school, where the uniform regulations were very broad, or think Gossip Girl, where they had uniforms but hardly, those things are closer to dress codes that are, and I believe that dress codes are way more detrimental to female education than uniforms. The trauma of being pulled out of class, sexualized by teachers, forced to change, doing the fingertip rule, these dress codes continually traumatize and humiliate young girls in the school setting. It hinders their education by being kicked out or taken out of class, being sent home from school. Dress codes, I believe, do more harm to females' education than uniforms ever will, because at least with uniforms, there are clear boundaries that are applied equally. With dress codes, again, they're always going to target females more, and as a result, young teen girls do not feel safe in their school setting because they're going to be sexualized by teachers and administrators. They're going to be embarrassed by being taken out of class or dress coded. It's humiliating to be dress coded. Dress codes in schools without uniforms are incredibly anti-women. I mean, they are just designed to traumatize and humiliate young girls. Whereas uniforms, it's the same across the board. My final point in the conclusion is that if uniforms were subsidized and allowed students the choice of bottoms and tops regardless of gender, we would eliminate two main issues of uniforms and allow the pros of uniforms to come through. They're easy, they help distinguish between work and home life, and minimize blatant expressions of wealth inequality and minimize gender inequality as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I just find this interesting, and I really want to know, in your response, in your comments down below, tell me if you had a uniform or not growing up and what you think about uniforms or how we can make uniforms better. Or do you think they're pointless? My mom, my brother, and I, we all had uniforms. We're all pro uniform, but maybe we've been brainwashed into conformity. Maybe that's the reason why I'm pro uniform. What do you think? Do you think I've been brainwashed, or do you think I have some good points here? I'm so excited to read the comments on this video because I think the discussions are going to be so interesting. If you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Keep having this discussion about uniforms. Yeah, I think it's a topic that people feel really passionately about. If you're anti-uniform, what do you think of my defenses about stifling creativity and subsidized uniforms? Do you think that helps, or are you still anti-uniform? If you want to see more from me, follow me on TikTok and Instagram because I post content there almost every single day. And with that, oh, and subscribe to my channel because I post videos every Thursday. And with that, have a happy, happy day. Bye.